Just 1 second real quick. I'm going to adjust the microphone as it's
Just
ever...
so slightly.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
It's just ever so slightly.
Great, thank you.
There you go. Oh, weird. Do we have an HR department?
No. We do not. Hi everyone, I'm Daniel, also known as CaptBurgerson. If you're watching me here, that's probably how you know me. And welcome to the 10,000 subscriber AMA special video. And also, say hello to Stainer.
Hi.
He's my crew today. My one-man army of a crew, who also has a YouTube channel, by the way. If you're in the lower mainland of Vancouver, British Columbia, then his content might be relevant to you. No, it's good stuff. You should check it out. I'll put a link. There's a link in the description. I'm so not used to having someone to play off of here.
I know, it's weird.
It is weird. Like
yeah.
when we're both like used to just sitting in a room alone, basically. Yeah. So
I spend a lot of time sitting in front of the computer writing scripts and and then talking into a microphone and being like, do I sound like an idiot right now? Especially when you hear your voice for the first time, you're just like,
oh, totally.
Yeah, it's weird.
Totally. It's a bit jarring. Yeah, you get used to it.
Yeah. Congratulations, by the way, on 10,000 subscribers.
Thank you.
It's a big milestone.
Appreciate it.
Would you like to thank anyone that helped you get there? Or is it all just yourself?
It's all me, baby. No. Why would we want to go over channel history and stuff like that?
Oh, let's do it. Let's do a little quickie.
A quickie.
Give me the elevator pitch of why I should subscribe.
If you like gaming content, if you ever wanted to hear someone talk about one level of a video game for half an hour at a time,
I mean, yeah.
you've come to the right place.
All right, let's. Shall we get to the Patreon questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Darren M asks, "What are your favorite non-Nintendo franchises?"
Ooh, that's tricky, actually. I like Elder Scrolls a lot. Elder Scrolls are fun games. They're fun games. Man, I was playing Morrowind. I have this curse. Every time I get really far into playing Morrowind, something happens and I lose save data. Like literally every time. It happened years ago and I gave up. I started replaying again this last December because it was like, oh wow, it's $8 on Steam. What a freaking deal, right? Yeah. So I bought it. Game of the Year edition has the expansions included, right? And it was a different glitch than what I had experienced in the past. Steam's cloud save data overwrote my save file and I lost like a week's worth of progress. And I was playing for like 2 hours a day. But do you know how much game I lost? I couldn't go back. It kills me. I'm cursed. But I love the games. They're great games, even if they're a little, well, they have that Bethesda polish, or lack thereof polish sometimes. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with now. The answer subject to change always. I also like Star Wars.
Wait till you play The Last of Us.
I have The Last of Us. Actually, my brother, Nathan, gave me The Last of Us remastered, and I still haven't played it because I'm like, I know it's gonna ruin me emotionally.
Let's move on to the next question from Tetra176.
That would be Tetra.
Tetra176. I'm so sorry if I pronounce all these names wrong. I can barely read.
Reading's hard.
All right, question 1. What is your biggest fear about the upcoming Zelda movie?
It's gonna suck. That's my biggest fear. No, I worry they're gonna play it too safe. This was a concern I had with the Mario movie as well, which was unfounded. It ended up not being the case. But like Hollywood adaptations tend to like try and almost distance themselves from the IP in a way, and that's not what you want. You want to embrace the IP. The Mario movie, they embraced the IP. They said, this is a Mario movie through and through. It's not like just a typical budget Hollywood movie that they throw out and try and play too safe. Anyways, I worry they're gonna play it too safe. I want them to take big risks with it. But you know, I am still like, I kind of wish they went the animated route. Live action can be good, but you know, it's just gonna be compared to Lord of the Rings. That's what's gonna happen. Yeah, my biggest fear is that it's just gonna suck. I know that's kind of a lame answer, but I have apprehensions. I'm hoping to be proven wrong.
You've been hurt before.
Yes.
The second part of the question, do you think you will do any more character study videos for characters in the LOZ series?
Legend of Zelda.
Legend of Zelda, okay. Sorry,
He's not one of us.
I play Factorio, so...
Maybe. I've done 3 character study videos. The problem is when doing a dungeon design video, I can get all the footage I need in that one dungeon, right? But for like a character study video, if they appear throughout the whole game, I need the whole game's worth of footage. And then I gotta play the whole game, like a 40-hour game, just for like a 10-minute video. It's a lot more work, essentially. The 3 that I did, I just happened to already have the footage, so it worked out. But it's something I'd like to come back to, so it's not off the table. I just don't see it anytime too soon. But I think I should, because those are some of my most viewed videos, honestly. Like, people love those videos, even though I kind of rewatch them. I'm like, oh, these are kind of bad.
Also adds, watching this channel grow has been an honest pleasure. Seeing your skills and confidence grow has been a real treat, and I'm excited for everything to come.
That's so lovely.
Smiley
Tetra.
face and a green heart.
Thank you, Tetra. That's lovely. No, she's been a supporter since basically the beginning.
One of the OGs.
So yeah.
Kebo-san, what's your favorite Zelda game at the moment, and what about it stands out to you in comparison to the rest of the series? Also, if you can, what are your favorite themes from its soundtrack?
Ooh. Okay, so recency bias is a thing. That's a thing. But probably Tears of the Kingdom right now. I know it's like the newest game, but I have a hard time peeling myself away from it. Like, it's so good. It's enormous, though. Yeah, that might be it right now. As far as just like games that I'm really just like excited to play, that one has had a hold on me since last May when it came out. So answer is subject to change, always. Favorite theme? Music? There's a track leading up to the Wind Temple in that game. And it's this great, it's like this sort of droning piano. As you ascend up, it like builds up more, like more layers just like keep getting added as your elevation gains. It's like incredible. It's like, it just starts out, it's like very hollow sounding at the start. It's like howling wind and droning piano. By the end of it, it's like this whole orchestra is like, just like motivating you. It's like pushing you. It's a beautiful piece of music. So that might be my favorite. It's a great track.
Also adds, congratulations on the 10K. You're such an incredible creator and deserve it. Much love.
Thank you, Kevin-san. Appreciate that.
Rin has 2 questions.
Perfect.
Firstly, this is way down the line, I know. Once you've run the gamut of Zelda games and dungeons to analyze, do you have an idea for where your focus will shift? Also, frog?
Frog?
And merch? Question mark.
Frog merch? Eventually, frog merch. Yeah, once we run out of dungeons, I kind of want to go back and like revisit the ones I did like first, like 3 years ago now. Because again, like rewatching some of those old videos, I'm like, video's kind of bad. Like at the time I was very proud of it, but you know, like your technical skills grow. And I think a lot of those scripts, those old scripts kind of lack structure. Plus it would be interesting to go back and see like, have my opinions actually like changed in the last few years? If I went back to it now, then maybe more character studies. After that, it's just like whatever I feel like, I guess. So we'll see.
Shall we get through the YouTube questions?
Yes. Some of these are from people on Patreon as well. They just left it on the YouTube channel. I'll probably edit in, move some of those up.
The Geek Apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
Woohoo.
Oh, so speaking of, she's on Patreon, but she...
Woohoo.
Woohoo. Woohoo.
Beyond well-deserved and earned. My question, after your experience working with so many channels, blogs, websites, and podcasts, etc., what was it that made you say, yes, it's time to start my own?
That is actually a good question. But yeah, before the CaptBurgerson channel existed, I did work on several other channels. So ZeldaInformer.com, Nintendo Prime, and then I was on Game Over Jesse channel as an editor and fact checker and things like that. And then of course we did the podcast on his channel for like 5 years. That ended a year and a bit ago now. It was last January, or that I stepped away. He continued the podcast, but I stepped away from the podcast. But I've always wanted to do this, I guess. I've had several other channels of my own as well. I also had like a shared channel that I did with other people that are local here, siblings of mine, for example. But it never really like took off. Sometimes working with other people is difficult, you know? like it's hard to schedule people, right? Like especially when you have like 4 people with different work schedules and things like that. So there's an appeal to not having to rely on anybody, essentially. So initially the channel started because I was doing live streams just like as a side thing. People asked me for like a place to archive them so that if they missed it live, they could go back and watch it. So I started the channel just for that. But then I wanted to do video work of my own that didn't feel like it fit in any other channels that I was working on, I guess. I was like, oh, it doesn't fit in with what we're doing on this channel. So it's kind of its own thing. And so then I just put it on my channel. Yeah, that I just wanted to continue with that because it was gratifying to do and to see, you know, the reception to that and have full creative control. But that's the big thing, is I like to be able to kind of work at my own pace as well, which sometimes is like hyper productive for in like a short amount of time, and sometimes it's like takes me a day to do what could probably have taken me an hour if I was more focused. So I hope that answers the question mostly, at least. There wasn't like a light bulb moment where I was like, this is what I'm gonna start doing. Like everything is kind of a gradual process. So
SKC 4188. Congrats! I know I've only recently discovered your channel. I really enjoyed your Dungeons video. Even if I don't always agree with your opinions, I really appreciate that you always give one fair chance. And keep an open mind. That's a very rare sight on the rest of YouTube, unfortunately.
Well, that's not a question, but thank you. Thank you, and yeah, I think that is something where, to speak to that, it's like nuance doesn't get views. Like if you want views, you have to take like a hard stance on things. Yeah. You know, this is bad, this is good, but I think there's room for something in the middle. Yeah. You know.
And 1605, huge congrats on 10K. How do you go about writing and structuring your scripts?
Writing's the hardest part. Once I'm like going into the edit, it's like there's just a flow to it that I really get into. When doing a series like dungeon design, it's very easy to structure. I always reread the last script. I have notes that are like essentially like section, like it's broken up section by section of like, well, here's before the dungeon, here's in the dungeon. You have to do a little overview, talk about this like music, talk about the vibe, the overall feel. So like there's like, I have like bullet points of like, I have to always hit these notes. But when I'm not doing a video in that series, things get a little more muddy, and then I go back to grade 12 English essay style writing. So, and then after I've written that, then you have to give it a haircut and make it not sound like grade 12 English essay and make it sound more natural. So that's the process basically. It's not a good answer.
No, I agree with you 100% though. Script writing,
it's tough.
It's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Going out and shooting a video,
that's fun.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Editing it together, especially if you have the script and the voice track done, off you go.
I've had a lot of people tell me, like a lot of other Zelda creators, for example, where they say that like editing is the hardest part, and they dread editing. But I always feel like that's where things like feel like they're coming together in a way. Yeah. And it's like, oh no, the video is really taking shape now.
Part of it could be too, having been editing for such a long time. I know you've been editing since high school.
Yeah, that's true.
I do it professionally.
And now we're in our 30s, so that means that's a really long time ago.
So you get very used to it, and once you understand the software you're working with and understand how to edit and how to tell a story, then it's very easy to just kind of put everything together.
And learn the hotkeys. That's editing 101. Learn the hotkeys first, because it will save you so much time. And save effect presets if there's something you use a lot. Because if you're like, oh, I gotta put in this exact, like, oh, these exact dimensions, and you're doing them over, just save the effect preset.
Luke Groundrunner 1084. Are your top Zelda songs?
I'm gonna guess what are. Was the question. What are my top Zelda songs? What are my top Zelda songs? A Gerudo Valley from this is in no particular order. Gerudo Valley from Ocarina of Time is a banger, start to finish. Just classic. Oh, I really like in A Link Between Worlds the Lorule field theme. It's basically a new take on the classic Dark World theme, but it's got like a flamenco take on that, and it's like it works really well. That's only two. This is actually a hard question.
What are the top three? This
is a hard. I just feel I should do three though. A top two is like a weird. No one does top two of anything. The track for the Lanayru Sand Sea in Skyward Sword is a really good one, particularly the past version because of time travel shenanigans. There you go. We'll go with those. Subject to change. Very loosey-goosey answer. I just try to think of good songs. So.
From Pixel Fusion Productions. Congrats, Cap. Here is a question. If you touched the Triforce and it caused a split, what piece of the relic would remain with you?
Well, first of all, Pixel Fusion also has a YouTube channel that is very worth checking out. I'll also put a link down below. He always finds really interesting topics to talk about that I would not have thought about. He made a whole video about one lake in this game, and it was actually really fascinating. So the Triforce, for the uninitiated, there's three pieces: power, wisdom, and courage. And if you touch the Triforce, if your heart and your spirit is not in balance, you only get to keep the one piece of the Triforce that most aligns with your values of either power, wisdom, or courage. I think wisdom. I'm a lover, not a fighter. Wisdom is probably the one that I would end up with. I like to think so. I'd like to think, at least.
I can see that. Did you see the old comic of the guy studying, or didn't study for his test because he has the Cloak of Wisdom? He puts the Cloak of Wisdom on, he gives him plus 10 wisdom. I should have studied.
Okay, that's good. I like that. Because it's not intelligence, it's not knowledge, it's just wisdom.
Yeah. Joking Batman. Congrats, Cap. Is there a favorite game or dungeon that you really enjoyed analyzing the design of?
Well, thank you, Aaron. I really enjoyed going through the dungeons of A Link to the Past. It's like that was the game that kind of took what the first two games did and really like took it to the next level. It basically set the standard for the series. And there's so many elements of that game that were carried over into future games. Like it's such an important game in the series. Because I started with Ocarina of Time and then I went kind of back to A Link to the Past in terms of analyzing them. It was interesting to kind of like see those elements like in sort of like their earlier form.
How many colanders do you have?
Who asked this question?
Bonnie's 122.
Oh, Bonnie. Okay, this was a reference to a live stream. I mean, we can go check. I want to say 5. I've got a set of red ones, and then I've got 2 metal ones. You know, the pasta strainers for your spaghetti.
All right, 7th_hookage944.
I think it's 7th Hokage 94. He's a stream frequenter as well.
Again,
7th.
It just says congratulations, Cap. You deserve it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
JFGS930. The growth your channel is seeing is so well deserved that it couldn't happen to a better guy. My question: since you became a content creator, how has the Zelda tuber world evolved as a whole, and what have you done to adapt to those changes?
It's grown as a whole. Let's rewind to like the pre-Breath of the Wild launch days. We had like only a small handful of established content creators. And then Breath of the Wild very much, in a lot of ways, like popularized the series. And so you had new creators kind of coming out of the woodwork with a lot of new and interesting stuff that people hadn't seen before. Like HG was a small channel when Breath of the Wild came out. And he's got like 150,000 subscribers now. And also Adam's a great dude. Congrats, and go subscribe to him. Like that's where we were. So to see that growth in the community has been awesome. As far as like what I've done to adapt, I think is essentially just trying to like fill the content gaps of where I wanted to watch this kind of video, but no one was doing it. So it's like, well, there's an audience for it then. So that's what I'm gonna do, if that makes sense. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Thank you, Joseph.
Jackie May 147. Top 3 favorite 3D Zelda games and why? I feel like that's a big question.
That is a big question. This is gonna upset people because if I don't pick someone's favorite game, they're gonna get upset. You know what I mean?
Choose wisely.
So it's a hard question. This in no particular order. Ocarina of Time. It's a classic. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. It's the game I very much grew up with. Majora's Mask for similar reasons, but also because it in a way stands for everything Ocarina of Time doesn't. But it's the game that came right after. But it's like such a pivot in a different direction. And honestly, Tears of the Kingdom, I just think that game is super fun. The mechanics it brings to the table are really different and unique, and it's enormous, and it's just one of those games I love to just play and explore in. And so like those 3 games, I'm choosing those 3 because they do things very differently from each other, but in excellent ways. And that's kind of what has kept the series going for so long, I think. But I love them all. They're all great. Just to put that out there.
Alrighty. Game Essays asks, would you keep or get rid of climbing in the next Zelda game?
Keeps. Definitely keeps. Climbing is great.
Gaming Reinvented says, congrats on nearly reaching 10k subs.
Thank you.
Nearly.
Well, I posted this before, in anticipation. I was like 200 away from that or something.
It's very well deserved, especially given the insanely high quality of your videos, especially the dungeon designs one. I would ask some questions, but I think I've already asked enough of them already.
He and I did a video together, so look forward to that, in which he does indeed ask me many questions. What I appreciate is that he came up with a lot of unique questions, and I don't think there's a lot of overlap with the questions I got here today. In a way, that's almost like a counterpart to this video. I'll share that when that video goes live.
Legend. If you were to design
It's okay. It's okay.
If you were to design a Zelda dungeon yourself, what would it look like?
You know, there's a game called Super Dungeon Maker, and I have it. So I might stream that and design a dungeon myself. But I think it would look very close to the Swamp Palace of Link to the Past, to be honest. I love the structure of that dungeon, where you've got sort of like a linear section that like kind of teaches you the mechanics, and then you reach like a central room that the dungeon sort of like sprawls out from and branches from there. and then you've got to like explore all these nooks and crannies and gather keys and get the hook shot item and stuff. You sort of like comb through, zigzag around this open area, and then once that's done, then there's like a third section that's again like a linear section of like, okay, now you've learned all these things around the dungeon, now we're gonna like put you to the brass tacks and like use these in a more challenging setting now, and that leads up to the boss fight. And centering the more complicated navigational section around a central room makes exploring feel more like memorable in a way.
I was gonna say, I hope this isn't too late, but congrats, Cap. I might not always be around much, but it's really cool to see you hit your goals.
Thank you, Sledgen.
Geek Muscle asks, what would you want to see in the next Zelda game as far as art style and gameplay?
It's been 10 months and I'm still digesting Tears of the Kingdom, so it's like trying to think of the next Zelda game. I don't even know where they're gonna go from here, you know? I actually really like the art direction of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It's like you see like this, it's like a painting of the game, and it's like that's also just what the game looks like. Like it's beautiful. Anyways, I really enjoy that art style, to be honest. I know a lot of people want more of a realism art style, but like if like that can age in a way that a more like painterly aesthetic won't. Gameplay wise, the only thing is I would say like double down on the dungeon part, because that's the only part that in many respects feels a little lacking compared to previous games. So if you can take those elements that worked really well in old games of like really well-tuned, sprawling, lengthy dungeons and bring those into these new games, you would have perfection, basically.
The Hyrule Gamer, what's your favorite part or a few favorite parts about collaborating with other creators?
Collaborating with other people is interesting because people will think of different things than you'll think of, you know? So it's good to kind of gain perspective on things that, like a different perspective than what you would normally have. I've asked people for collabs before, and it's never because I want to like clout chase or like gain their numbers or anything like that. It's just because I really like respect and like them as a creator, and I think that they would be cool to work with. So it's like, that's the gist. Yeah. Cool. It's fun to work with people as well.
Fruit Boutique, just recently discovered your channel. Your video on the Stone Towers warmed my heart. This dungeon is a true masterpiece from start to finish. Question, what got you into the Zelda series? For me, it was my cousin who had Majora's Mask, and I was fascinated by the golden cartridge. I bet you have that somewhere.
I do, actually.
He didn't want to play it because he couldn't find his way around, so I lied and said, I know this game and I can help him. I somehow figured things out as we played it together, and soon got my own game.
Love that, love that. So A Link to the Past was my first Zelda game. It came out 2 years before I was born. It came out in '91, but we had it. I was not good enough to play it, but it was just like one of those things that was in the house, right? So that was, it just existed in my household always. Ocarina of Time was the one that really, like, the first game where I was like actually old enough to be good at it, and it captured my imagination as a child in a way that no other game really ever did. So up until then, at least. So yeah, it's just been a constant in my life, basically.
Kokiri Theory? Wow, congrats on 10K, that's huge. My question is, what inspired you to start the channel in the first place? Was there another video, a particular moment in a game, or something else that made you say, I need to make a video about this?
We talked about that a bit with another question. Working on other channels, things didn't fit on those channels, so I don't think there was ever one moment where I was like, aha, I need to do this, you know? It just kind of happened gradually.
Time Traveler Ali asks, or says, congratulations, dude. My question is, what is your playstyle when you first get a new game? Complete it 100%? Rush, don't rush to finish the story? Or a third method?
Well, thank you, Ali. I'm a completionist. I try to take my time and just enjoy it at my own pace and complete it as much as possible, at least. There definitely have been games I don't bother completing, but for Zelda especially, it's one I want to soak in. Because I think when people rush through the games, it can kind of diminish the joy of it, you know? That's my answer.
Cool.
I'm a completionist to my own detriment. Dude, do you know how many hours it took me to complete Tears of the Kingdom? 500 hours. That game is huge.
Gabora, what advice would you give to content creators wanting to share their work with coworkers, non-creator friends, and family? Don't. Yeah, I pretty much. Well, it depends. Like what are they into, right? Like if they're not into the niche of it, I don't want to like push my content on someone who's like not gonna find joy in it or not gonna find interest in it. But you know, if people ask,
than just try to be unashamed about it, I guess, in a way. I always find like that's an awkward thing. I'll be like at the barber shop. They're like, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, oh, now we're gonna have this conversation. I do YouTube. And then they're asking me all these questions. And I kind of, there was a certain point I had to kind of get over myself because it's like, I feel like so awkward answering this question, but people are genuinely interested when I say that I'm a content creator. So yeah.
I'll add to that. I had a video do quite well in the fall.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of my coworkers and people that I work with discovered it, and they just found my channel organically.
Oh really?
And they're just like, wow. Yeah. You get like photos from your friends, your coworkers of like your video showing up in the top of their suggestions.
That's
And just
cool.
being like, ah.
That makes sense though, based on like,
Yeah, region.
you know, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But still, that's really cool.
It's a little scary at first.
Yeah.
To go from hiding in your room in front of your computer working on things to being like, go out into the world and do the thing.
That's the case where it's like, you know, as long as you're not doing something that will get you fired,
Yeah.
you know, then it should be fine.
The Master Sword 1621. Favorite Zelda final boss?
Final boss. Okay, so Tears of the Kingdom comes very close because the finale of that game is incredible, very cinematic, but and nostalgia may play part in this. I gotta give it to Ocarina of Time. The Ganon battle there, it's like, particularly on the N64, when they released the remake for 3DS, it was like too brightened, but on the N64, it's like Ganon is like almost, he's so hard to see. Like you can see his silhouette. The only time you can actually like make out any of his features is when like there's a strike of lightning in the background and it like lights him up a little. Like it's like so good, and the music is like super intense. It's like operatic, and he's huge. Like the scope of it's awesome. So that one might be my favorite. Wind Waker also gets really close though, because you've got that sort of just like this sword fight while the world is ending around you. Like you're like in this bubble that's like collapsing and water's like rushing in to flood the area, and you're doing this final boss fight. It's epic as well. So those two are probably my favorites. Tears of the Kingdom gets really close though. There's a lot of good final bosses though. They end these games on some very high notes typically.
In a way that kind of ties into the next one. From Danny X855. If someone wanting to get into the Zelda series asked you to recommend them the first game, what would you pick for them?
Well, I would have to ask them like what do they enjoy about games for starters? Because different Zelda games do different things. Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask is the example I brought up earlier. Both games are released on the N64 within like 2 years of each other, but they do things like really differently. Ocarina of Time is a very traditional Zelda experience with sort of like 3 acts, and it's a lot of like core dungeons. Majora's Mask is very like, there's only 4 dungeons, and it's really side quest heavy. Things are a lot more condensed instead of sprawling and open. So it's like, well, what do you enjoy about games more? Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are like really different than those classic Zelda games.
Yeah.
Ocarina is a good starting point in general because it has a lot of like the core Zelda elements, and then you can kind of find like what you can try different games and see like what kind of like meshes with you well. That's hard because you got to know your demographic, I guess, and who you're recommending it to.
Quinn in the Clouds. Whoa, congrats. Honestly, I'm surprised you don't already have more. You put out great content with lots of thought and heart. I don't have any questions off the top of my head, but congrats again.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
How would you even pronounce that?
Which one?
The top one there.
I don't know. We'll put it on screen though. We'll put it on screen.
Actually, holy hell, 10 subs. That's so impressive.
10 subs.
10k subs.
Oh yeah, 10k subs.
Congratulations. Secondly, what do you think the era of the Wild games did better than their predecessors?
There's an element of survival that's not really in the other games. There is a point where you kind of get OP if you're good enough at like resource gathering and stuff. Whereas like old classic Zelda games, like you can cut grass and you get a health pickup, right? You know, stuff like that, right? And it's like, no, if you want your health back, you need to, in these newer games, you gotta gather food, cook it, and then eat it, right? Like, and you gotta find a time and place to do those things. There's like this element that feels like very like raw, real, I'm in the wilderness and have to survive.
Another long name.
All right.
When and not if you get to 100k, can you make a Hyrule analyst for both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom?
Like an analysis of the overworld map?
Yeah.
There's so much. We'll say it's not off the table, but it's not scheduled content either.
The Krusty Fox. Congrats, Cap. What's one piece of advice you would go back and give yourself when you were first starting out on YouTube, knowing what you know now?
Start sooner. As you know, I did theater before this. And so the big thing is to not treat YouTube like theater. In theater, you've got to really like project. But when you have a mic that's nice and close to you, you don't need to yell into the mic, you can just speak. So that's the thing, don't treat YouTube like theater. That's what I would tell myself, I guess. Not necessarily advice to give to other people because that might not apply, but for younger Daniel, definitely.
Wind Waker Hyrule asks, has there been a dungeon that interested you more after analyzing it? And also, what's been your favorite dungeon to cover?
Ironically, that my answer is a dungeon in Wind Waker. The Earth Temple in Wind Waker is a dungeon that I didn't really like pay much mind to before. And then when I did a dedicated video on it and I gave it the whole analysis and I was like, this is actually like a really well-designed dungeon. It has this mechanic of reflecting sort of like a beam of light on mirrors, and the puzzle keeps sort of iterating constantly throughout the dungeon. So it's like the first part is like you're just moving like one mirror into place. It keeps evolving where it's like then now you have the mirror shield, so you have to be part of the puzzle, and then your companion also has a mirror and you've got to move them to be part of the puzzle. And then it gets to this big room like right before the end where there's like 10 mirrors plus the 2 characters, and you have to bounce it from like across the room from one end to the other to activate these 2 switches at the same time. The way it just like keeps building upon itself is like so cool. So that one I was like, whoa, you know, I never gave this dungeon enough credit in the early 2000s when this game came out, but like, it's really good. It's really well designed. So yeah, that's definitely been the one where my opinion has like changed after covering it. What has been my favorite to cover? Came up earlier, I think Stone Tower and Majora's Mask. I love that dungeon. I would do the video differently now if I could, you know, with more polish than maybe I was doing back then. But setting aside the technical standpoint and looking more at the dungeon itself, like that's always one that I'm excited to play through.
Kata713 says, congrats. Who's your favorite obscure NPC from each Zelda game?
Obscure from each Zelda game? Or we're not going through every Zelda game. There's like 20 games. Some of my favorite obscure NPCs. In A Link to the Past, there's 2 brothers who are quarreling. They're fighting. One of them like seals off the bedrooms. So they have like 2 rooms. They're joined and just seals the door between them because they're fighting. And I just think that's the most over-the-top, ludicrous thing. You would literally have to use a bomb to break the wall down to get into the other room. The most over-the-top, but completely on-brand sibling behavior. You know what? I'm gonna seal your door. They're not relevant to the story at all. They're just there.
Here's a fun question. I like this one from Krish B2200. What was your journey prior to streaming? International Man of Mystery? Witness Protection Program? I'm definitely not with the FBI.
I signed an NDA. I worked some very uninteresting jobs, like at Starbucks, and I worked before that I worked in a movie theater, and after working at Starbucks for 6 years, I worked in a bank for something to the tune of 4 years. And I guess you get to a point where your soul has been drained sufficiently enough that you just need to do something creative to to reinvigorate yourself and hopefully recollect some of your soul back. So not much of a journey, just so much as some jobs I hated working, and then I stopped working them to do this.
If you were being eaten by a cannibal, what sauce/condiment would you be eaten with?
This is the worst question I've ever heard. I don't think I'd make for a very good meal, so you'd need like a lot of gravy, I think. You know, just like a lot of gravy and mashed potatoes on the side. I really don't think I would make a good meal though.
MattFry6716 asks, what's your favorite retro game?
It's a little game called Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo. It is one of the most atmospheric games like ever, which is incredible. It's an incredible accomplishment for a 16-bit game to feel so cold and isolated and atmospheric, you know, like it's a masterpiece through and through. And I will say there is no nostalgia bias in that, because the first time I played that game, despite the fact it came out in 1994, first time I played it was in 2015. So I was late to the party, but I fell in love with it. It's a masterpiece.
Chicken Perm asks, do you like stuff?
I do like stuff and things sometimes.
Just stuff.
Yeah, stuff is good.
And final question. Davy Boy Genius asks, can you beat up Zeltic?
I would never. I've broken bread with Zeltic. I've sat across from a table and cheersed and had a beer with the man. I would never fight him. But I guess the question is, could I, not would I? So I would never. I would never, but I don't think I could, to be honest. I'm not much of a fighter. I'm a little scrappy though. You grow up with siblings, he has siblings too though, actually, as far as I know. No, I don't think, I don't think I would take Zeltic. We just wouldn't. That's what I'm hoping.
Right, that's all the questions that are posted here.
That is crazy that we got through them all already. Actually, this took us, what time? It took us like 2 hours, I guess. An hour and a half. So that is all of the questions. Thank you to everyone who submitted a question. I really enjoyed reading at least most of them. Thank you to Stainer for coming. Yeah, that's just his name, by the way. It's not like a crude nickname I came up with. That's really his name. But thank you so much for coming to assist and bring your professionalism to today's shoot.
No worries.
Otherwise, it would have been me in front of a webcam, and that would look shitty. It's appreciated. If you are in the greater Vancouver area, his channel may appeal to you if you like infrastructure. Yes. Who doesn't like a little infrastructure? But I will leave a link in the description for the 2 people that are local watching this. Thank you all so much. 10,000, again, it blows my mind. It snuck up on me so fast, and I'm always grateful to be able to do this and share my thoughts for you. And grateful for the fact that people would want to listen to me talk about Zelda games for hours on end. So thank you so much for all of the support. Any closing remarks that you want to make here?
No, congratulations, man.
Thank you.
It's a big thing.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. And here comes the Patreon card.
And thank you for watching today's video. Thank you to everyone who submitted a question. And thank you to my supporters across both Patreon and my channel members here on YouTube, including Greymage, Brenda, Tetra, Justin, Midnight Naomi, Bunny, Stefan, and all of the other names you're seeing on screen right now. By the way, I just want to mention I did pay Stainer for his time and use of his equipment shooting today's video, and that was financed using the funds I got from Patreon and from channel memberships. So thank you guys for making this video possible. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Bye-bye.